Hello, family and friends. This week has been a week filled with special days. On Wednesday, July the 1st, we celebrated Canada Day, the anniversary of Canadian Confederation. And on Saturday, the 4th of July, the American part of our family and friends celebrated July 4th Independence Day for the United States of America. Sandwiched in the middle of those two was our special day. On July the 3rd, Diane and I celebrated our 55th wedding anniversary. And it was a very beautiful day on the 3rd this year, as it was in 1965, on the day we were married. We had met at Bible College in London College of Bible and Missions here in London, Ontario. I had just moved with my mom and dad and family here. Diane had been studying at the school for several years before I started, and she graduated with a 3-year degree and then went to Teachers College at her father's request. And she found out that she loved teaching. She was so thankful that her father encouraged her to do that, because the rest of her life, or her career life, working career, she was a teacher. Saturday, July the 3rd, 1965, we were married at Glencairn Baptist Church in London, where we were attending and members. It was a very small building at the time. Today it's a large church, but at that time there was just one small building, and we had a great family event there. My best man was Paul Collins, who lived in London and became the superintendent of education in St. Catherine's later in his life, and also a teacher. And Paul was a good friend, and I'll share with you in a minute some of the funny things he did that day. The bridal group were Diane's cousins, so Ferial Palmer, her name was at the time, but Diane was a Palmer. Ferial and her sister Rhea were maid of honor and bridesmaid. And then we had 2 junior bridesmaids, Connie and Donna Palmer. On the male side, besides Paul as my best man, Dave Priest, who I worked with at Bank of Nova Scotia for the year I worked after grade 13 in Burlington. Beautiful jazz piano player. Dave was the head usher. And then my 2 brothers, Steve and Phil, and Diane's brothers, Spence and Ken Palmer, were ushers as well. So we had a large wedding party. It was a wonderful day and a beautiful ceremony. I actually sang on my wedding day, which I never realized how emotional that would be. I just stared at the clock at the back of the church to keep from breaking up. I sang the hymn, "Take Our Lives and Let Them Be," consecrated, Lord, to be in a new tune, a different tune than what the traditional one is. And it was really difficult, but it was meaningful because that was the theme of our marriage. The reception was a very unusual one because Paul Collins was not going to let anyone tinkle the glasses until we became totally distracted. So he allowed it for a time or two, and then he stood up and said, "There's an old legend that on the 4th tinkling of the glasses, every man in the room kissed the woman on his left." And everybody was kind of stunned, and a few of them who were brave enough then did what he suggested. On the next tinkling, Paul said, "And on this tinkling of the glasses, the legend goes on to say that every man in the room kissed any woman he wanted to." There was one brother named Tom Brown who was a family friend, especially a close friend of the Collinses. And he ran around the room and literally kissed every woman in the room. Well, this cracked everybody up, and it was a lot of fun. We also had fun because as part of the reception, Gord Vare worked with Christian Service Brigade, and he was a ventriloquist, and he had a puppet named Happy. And his brother Don, who I went to school with, played guitar, and the 2 of them would sing as well, and Happy, I think, even sang. But the one I remember best was the puppet said to Gord, and Gord was a perfect ventriloquist. You could not see his lips moving, and that puppet was talking like it was really him. And the puppet says to Gord, "Oh, Gord, wasn't that so nice to hear Paul say his vows today at this wedding?" You know, and when he promised everything he owned to Diane, he said, "With all my worldly goods, I thee endow." And Gord says, "Yeah, that was really quite something, wasn't it?" And so the puppet then turns its head and looks at me and says, "There goes your bicycle, Paul." Which was about all I had at the time, actually. And there he goes. So it was a great day. We had family and friends from all over the place, and it was just a wonderful time. We then celebrated our 1st through 5th wedding anniversaries in London. I finished school, and we lived in Detroit for 2 years while I did graduate studies, but we still came home to London in the summer. So on July the 3rd, every year on our anniversary, we would be back in London in those Detroit years, staying at Diane's parents' home. And in those 5 years, we added our 2 genetic children to the family. Tim was born in September of 1968 and Tanya in February of 1970. And those were in those first 5 years of marriage, which we enjoyed so much, and in which we added 2 wonderful kids to the family. Wedding anniversaries 6 through 10 were in Manila. On July the 1st, 1971, we went to the Philippines as missionaries with Far East Broadcasting Company. In those years that we worked there, all through the 1970s, we celebrated our wedding, significant wedding anniversaries. In the earliest years, we celebrated them with really dear friends, Terry and Carol Madison. I think I've mentioned them in previous videos. On my birthday in mid-June, it was their anniversary. And on our anniversary, July the 3rd, it was Carol's birthday. And so we celebrated together, as I think I've shown this picture before. It was also in those years, from 6 to 10, that we added a 3rd child to our family, which was our adopted daughter, our Filipina daughter, Melinda, in 1973. And she became part of the family, very much so. And on an earlier video, I've shared with you the incredible miracle of our getting her first Filipino passport in order to come to Canada the year we spent at home. The very first anniversary where we did something what you would call very special, which was like a trip, was on our 20th anniversary in 1985. We were living in Singapore. We spent 3 years in Singapore. We had joined Open Doors in 79 in Manila, and by 82 we were working in Singapore, and in 1982 we moved there. And in 85, Diane and I celebrated our 20th wedding anniversary, and we went for a trip. We went off to the Genting Highlands in West Malaysia. We were able to drive up there from Singapore, cross the causeway into the tip of West Malaysia, and then up to the Genting Highlands, which was at that time a beautiful, beautiful area, but it was just a big hotel, beautiful big hotel. I think it had a casino attached to it, but we basically were just getting away for some quiet time and enjoyed that immensely. Today, this area of the Genting Highlands, it has everything you would ever want for a whole family to go to and visit, and it's quite attractive. Our 25th and 30th anniversaries were spent in Mississauga. In 1986, we returned home to Canada to become the Canadian director for Open Doors, which I agreed to do for 5 years. And in those years, we celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary and our 30th. The 25th was for us just a number. It wasn't a special deal, but by the 30th, our children said, "We've got to have a big party for you guys." So on our 30th wedding anniversary, Tim and Tanya put on a and Melinda put on a special event for us. It was actually at our home in Mississauga, in Erin Mills area, and our wedding anniversary was on a Monday. So on the Saturday and Sunday, which was July the 4th, or 1st rather, and 2nd, we had open house at our home and invited the wedding party. My best man Paul and Kathy Collins came. Our friends from Burlington, who we work with so closely in the Philippines, Jack and Adele Baker came, and many, many other friends who we knew, and as well as our family, came to our home, and we had a very, very special time together. It was neat. But the unique thing for that 30th anniversary was we had our first grandchild around. In 1990, Cassie was born, and so she was almost 5 years old when we were celebrating our 30th. And we have a little video clip of her and her talking to her mom at that time.
Play take after, okay?
The 40th anniversary was in 2005. It was a Sunday that year, and Diane and I had been together in Alberta. I was doing some kind of meetings, which now at my age, it's a wonder I remember even what year it was. We were there for some reason to do some meetings, and then we had a family reunion because my brother Steve and Phil both lived in Alberta, in the Calgary area at that time. And so we had a family reunion together, and on the following Sunday after this reunion we had on, I think it was a Friday or a Saturday, we decided to go to Banff to celebrate our 40th anniversary. My two brothers were astounded. They said, "Banff? Why would you go to Banff? It's just a tourist trap." Well, if you live in Alberta, maybe you think that, but Diane and I think there's no more beautiful spot, perhaps other than the Okanagan Valley in BC, in Canada, or Peggy's Cove in Nova Scotia. But we loved the weekend we spent in Banff, and we had a great vacation time there. Diane was introduced to sushi at a little Japanese, there were so many Japanese tourists that they actually had a Japanese sushi place with a electric train that went in a big oblong circle, and on the train cars were plates with different kinds of sushi. As the train came by your seated area, you took off the plate that you wanted, and the plates were different colors based on their price, and at the end you just paid by the number of plates that you ended up having. And it was delicious and delightful. We had a wonderful time at Banff, despite what my brothers predicted. We didn't mind the tourists, because everywhere you looked from your room in Banff are mountains. Beautiful mountains all the way around. The views and every angle are spectacular. Well, we come now to the 50th anniversary in 2015. It was a Friday, and I forget what other activities we were involved in. I think we were going to be away somewhere at our anniversary time. So our children put on a 50th bash for us. That was fantastic. At the late June, the last Sunday of June in 2015, at our church, at Forest City Bible Church, we had a big 50th open house. And it was really something. Somewhere at the middle of this open house, Chris, Melinda's husband, took a picture of the gang of people that were there, and this is what it looked like. This wasn't everybody, but it was those who happened to be there at that time when we got a picture of friends and family that came to celebrate our 50th anniversary. This past week, we celebrated 55. We went to Milestones for lunch out on a patio. It's COVID-19 year. You don't do things as usual. We're no traveling this time. And we went and sat out on the patio of Milestones and had Diane's favorite mushroom soup. In fact, she had 2 bowls of it. She likes it so much and hasn't had any for months and months. And after that, I took her shoe shopping, which for any woman will understand what a special event that is. And that's how we celebrated our 55th wedding anniversary. In all of these years, God has been good to us. We have 3 wonderful children. They've produced 11 wonderful grandchildren. And this is what our family looks like today, with God's blessings.